The sirens were for me. My HOA president just told 911 I attacked her with a garden hose, and the cops were seconds away. My career, my reputation, everything was about to implode over a lie. But as she smugly hung up the phone, she had no idea who my wife really was or that she just triggered a chain of events that would destroy her instead. This is what happened. It all started with a knock on my door. There was Olivia Bennett, our HOA president, dressed like she was running a Fortune 500 company instead of a suburban neighborhood. Clipboard in hand, she demanded to inspect my backyard. Now, I sell medical equipment. I deal with difficult doctors every day. But I was not prepared for her. Her hands were shaking not from nerves, but from pure unhinged rage. "I need to inspect your backyard for compliance violations," she announced, and I swear she said it like she was serving me a court summons. I was standing there in pajamas, coffee mug in hand, thinking this has got to be a joke. "What specific violation?" I asked. Olivia's face darkened. "Section 4.7 Landscaping Standards," she snapped. But when I asked her to show me the exact rule, she couldn't do it. She got defensive, talking about how she didn't need to explain HOA authority to residents. That's when I called my wife inside. "Honey, the HOA lady wants to inspect our yard." Sophia appeared in the doorway as she ended a phone call. "Sorry," she said into the phone. "I had to coordinate tomorrow's crisis management session." Then she looked at Olivia and gave me that look. You know, the one wives give when they can see trouble miles away. "Just ask for proper documentation," she murmured to me. I handle confrontational people in my crisis management work all the time. They usually back down when you make them document everything. I had no idea at the time, but that little comment was the most important piece of foreshadowing in this entire mess. My wife, Sophia, works in what she calls crisis management. She's always been vague about details. I figured she was some kind of corporate consultant dealing with workplace drama. As it turned out, her skills were about to become vital. Olivia wouldn't back down. She got aggressive, insisting she had every right to inspect our property. That's when my sales training kicked in. "Ma'am, I'll need written notice with specific violations cited per HOA Bylaws Section 12.4. You should have seen her face turn red. She clearly expected me to roll over. Instead, she had to stand there and write up a violation notice on the spot. Watching her come up with violations for a rose bush was better than cable television. And I noticed something else. Her hands were shaking worse, and she kept rewriting things. She actually asked me what color my house was painted, like she couldn't see the beige siding right in front of her. That's when I started documenting everything with my phone. In medical device sales, you learn to document everything for liability protection. After she left, I looked at that notice. It was insane. Violations for an unauthorized rose bush. Not a thing. Inappropriate paint color. My house is the same beige as half the neighborhood. And excessive garden equipment, referring to my hose. And every rule she cited came from the 2019 HOA handbook. I checked the 2023 version. It explicitly allows decorative flowering bushes under 3 feet tall. My rose bush is 18 inches. She was so rattled she didn't even check the current rules. That night, I'm settling in to watch TV when my doorbell rings at 11:30. Who visits at that hour? I check the camera. There's Olivia on my porch, slipping more notices under my door. No knock, no bell, sneaking around like a deranged tooth fairy. She left 3 more notices. Wrong paint shade, again, same color as others, suspicious garden equipment, and violation of community aesthetic standards. This woman was basically fining me for existing. When I told Sophia about the midnight visit over breakfast, she had this look, concern mixed with professional interest. "Erin, her behavior shows classic escalation patterns," she said. "She's building documentation for something bigger." The calm, analytical way she said it made me realize my wife dealt with seriously unstable people at work. Maybe she was a therapist. Maybe HR for a huge corporation. All I knew then was that she was far too calm about having a neighbor clearly losing her grip. Looking back now, the warning signs were obvious. Olivia wasn't just a difficult HOA president. She was having a breakdown, and my refusal to submit had become a symbol of everything wrong in her life. But at the time, I just thought I was dealing with a power-hungry busybody. After the doorbell incident, I filed a formal grievance with the HOA management. That night at 2 a.m., my phone buzzes with a voicemail from Olivia. Instead of her usual angry rants, her voice is calm, almost satisfied. You have no idea what you've started. Sleep well tonight, because tomorrow you're going to learn what real authority looks like. What was she planning that made her so confident? The next morning at 6 a.m., my doorbell rang aggressively. Olivia had appointed herself the neighborhood dictator. I'm not talking about a polite knock. It sounded like someone banging down my door because the house was on fire. Her desperate need to prove she still controlled something was burning hotter than any fire. The HOA management called me back within 48 hours. I'd filed the grievance properly, documented harassment, requested mediation. The rep sounded tired. He said they'd contact Olivia about a hearing. I could tell he had dealt with situations like this before. But Olivia didn't schedule a hearing. She launched a social media war. She created a private group called Hillrest Standards Committee and convinced 85 neighbors to join. Every day she'd post about rule breakers and community standards. She never mentioned me by name, but everyone knew exactly whom she meant. She was crowdsourcing hatred against me over a rose that cost less than a fast food meal. It was like watching a mental breakdown in real time, except dozens of neighbors were eating it up. The daily doorbell terrorism got worse. Every morning at 6 a.m., while I tried to get ready for work and drink coffee like a civilized human being, Olivia would pound on the door and demand to know if I'd corrected the violations. I'd point out that my rose bush was perfectly legal. She would shake her head, muttering about people who don't understand proper authority. I recorded 12 of these incidents over 3 weeks. Each visit, she looked more unhinged, hair less perfect, clothes wrinkled, eyes manic. Sophia's reaction to this escalating behavior started to make me think her crisis management job might be more specialized than I realized. Instead of getting angry like a normal person, she'd watch these confrontations with clinical detachment, taking notes. She needs clear boundaries or this behavior spirals, she'd tell me. Her colleagues would call about confrontation scenarios and escalation protocols. What kind of crisis management job requires such detailed knowledge of how unstable people think? Meanwhile, our HOA treasurer, Jessica, pulled me aside during an evening walk. "Aaron, I'm doing the quarterly financial review. There are serious irregularities," she said. A garden advisory LLC has received $8,500 from HOA funds over the past 14 months. The registered address? Olivia's apartment. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about a rose bush anymore. Olivia was running a fraud operation, stealing from neighbors to fund her campaign against anyone who questioned her authority. But the career sabotage took things to another level. She didn't just call my clients randomly. She researched my company, identified my 3 biggest accounts, and made strategic strikes. Dr. Peterson from Metro General called me personally. Aaron, someone claiming to be a concerned neighbor, called with disturbing allegations about character issues and police investigations. They seem to know details about your schedule. Is there something I should know? My stomach dropped. This woman was systematically trying to destroy my $150,000 career over a rose bush. The community split into factions, like we were choosing sides in a civil war. Olivia's supporters, about 65 households, were people terrified of becoming her next target if they didn't show loyalty. They whispered about how I was undermining community standards. My supporters, about 20 households, mostly younger families fed up with her control, were brave enough to oppose her. The remaining neighbors tried to stay neutral, hoping to avoid the crossfire. What disturbed me was how Olivia turned neighbors into unwitting accomplices. She convinced 4 people to let her photograph violations from their yards, claiming it was for insurance or property value protection. When I confronted Mrs. Henderson about letting Olivia use her yard, she said she thought it was standard HOA documentation. Olivia was systematically gathering photos of my house from multiple angles, building a surveillance portfolio. Megan, Olivia's cousin, became visibly more nervous as Olivia's demands escalated. I'd see her around, exhausted and jumpy, like someone in way over her head. Later, I learned Olivia paid her $350 a month from HOA funds and let her live in a spare room in exchange for filing fake complaints with county offices, noise violations, pet licensing issues, zoning violations. She was building an official paper trail of complaints against me. The metadata on the fake Bruce photos that Jessica discovered convinced me I was dealing with someone completely unhinged. The timestamp showed Olivia took evidence photos of her fake injuries an hour before our alleged encounter even occurred. She wasn't just lying spontaneously, she was planning elaborate false accusations. When I showed this to Sophia, she got that look again, professional interest mixed with concern. Financial manipulation combined with stalking behavior and false evidence creation indicates someone losing all boundaries, she said calmly. This isn't just about control. It's something deeper. I got my attorney involved. He sent a cease and desist letter on a Friday afternoon. On Monday morning, I found a county code enforcement notice taped to my door. Here's the weird part. It was dated and filed before my lawyer even sent the letter. How did Olivia know? The notice said my property created public health hazards. Officer Morgan showed up Tuesday to investigate. He walked around my property, checking items like a military inspection. Sir, I don't see any health hazards, he said after 20 minutes. Your yard's cleaner than most I've seen. When I showed him documentation of Olivia's campaign, photos, timestamps, recorded conversations, his expression changed from bored to interested. Ma'am has been busy, he said, flipping through my log. This level of documentation suggests harassment rather than property violations. Sophia came outside, and Morgan's demeanor shifted to something more professional. She evaluated his approach like a teacher grading a student. Perfect crisis de-escalation technique, she told me after he left. He followed standard assessment protocol. Gather evidence, interview all parties, document inconsistencies. When I asked how she knew police protocol, she smiled. I handle crisis situations at work. We study response techniques. But Olivia wasn't done escalating. Officer Morgan's visit must have given her twisted inspiration. She started manufacturing false evidence, staging fake injuries. I caught her on my doorbell camera applying makeup to her arm, taking photos from different lighting angles, rehearsing a conversation. She was literally practicing being a victim of assault that never happened. And the workplace sabotage continued. She didn't just call my clients. She posed as a potential medical equipment buyer, booked an appointment, then told the receptionist she felt unsafe meeting me due to my history of aggression toward women and needed to speak with management about safety concerns. The entire performance was captured on our lobby security cameras. Watching it was surreal. My boss reviewed the footage and looked worried. She seemed genuinely frightened, he said. Are you absolutely sure there's no history here? Because if there's any truth, we need to address it. 3 major clients were now questioning my character. I could see my career disappearing over fabricated stories. Megan, Olivia's cousin, was the one piece I didn't understand. She was living in Olivia's spare room, paying rent by filing fake complaints. But the fake injury staging convinced me Olivia had crossed the line into true danger. I watched her on security footage, staging an encounter. She'd walk toward my driveway, wait for me to appear, then start applying makeup bruises. The timestamps showed she took those photos before any interaction. She was planning false assault accusations. When I showed this to Sophia, she looked alarmed. This is premeditated false documentation, she said, rewinding the footage like a detective. In crisis management, we learned that people who stage evidence are building toward major escalation. They're not just angry. They're preparing for something specific. She got a call right then, and I overheard part of her conversation. What are the warning signs when someone transitions from verbal threats to false victimization? That's when I started wondering about my wife's job. Sitting alone in my garage that night, staring at the $12 rose bush that had somehow triggered a neighborhood war, I had a moment of doubt. Should I just remove it and apologize? Was fighting over a flower worth risking my career? Max, my golden retriever, sat next to me, sensing my frustration. Buddy, all this over a plant. Is this the hill I want to die on? Something about backing down felt wrong. It felt like giving a bully exactly what she wanted. I'd learned in sales that once you let a bully win, they never stop coming back. Olivia called me that evening, but her voice was different, calm, satisfied. "I want to thank you," she said. "You've helped me realize exactly what I need to do." Sweet dreams. The line went dead. You know that feeling when someone who's been screaming at you for weeks suddenly gets calm and starts thanking you? Yeah, that's not a good sign. It's the sound of someone who just figured out how to hurt you in a way you can't defend against. The next 72 hours were terrifying. Olivia apparently decided sleep was optional. She started posting messages in her group at all hours. Between midnight and 6 a.m., she posted 23 updates about direct action and when legal systems fail. Reading them was like watching someone document their own breakdown. Some people only understand consequences delivered personally, she wrote at 3:15 a.m. The posts got progressively more disturbing, talking about how weak systems require strong individuals and respect must be earned through demonstrations of power. Then she started stalking me. Every morning at 5 a.m., she'd park her car across from my house and sit with a camera, documenting my threatening gardening activities. She photographed me bringing in garbage cans, walking Max, checking mail, creating a surveillance file of my normal life. She followed my jogging route at a distance, staying far enough away to deny stalking, but close enough that I knew she was watching. The psychological pressure was enormous. It was like having a personal spy agency that never took a day off. Sophia's analysis of this surveillance made me realize her expertise went way beyond corporate crisis management. She studied the timestamps and photo evidence with professional thoroughness. She's exhibiting pre-violence escalation behaviors, Sophia would say, reviewing my daily documentation like she was preparing for court. In crisis management, we learned people who transition from verbal harassment to systematic surveillance are usually building towards something major. Her work team would call at odd hours, discussing hostile confrontation scenarios and behavioral assessment protocols for imminent violence. I started to wonder what kind of situations required understanding how dangerous people prepare for attacks. The neighborhood dynamics became surreal, like a psychological war zone. Patricia, who defended Olivia from day one, started recording Olivia's 3 a.m. patrols because she's scaring my kids with that flashlight and camera. Even her supporters began to question whether she'd lost her mind. Mike, who'd been neutral, told me he watched Olivia spend 45 minutes measuring my mailbox with a ruler at dawn. "Dude, that's not normal HOA behavior," he said. "That's obsessive-compulsive stalker behavior." But a core group of 12 neighbors still defended her, mostly because they were terrified of becoming her next target. Better Aaron than me, I overheard one say, people would rather watch their neighbor get destroyed than risk attention. I couldn't blame them. Watching what Olivia did to me would make anyone want to stay invisible. Then I realized Olivia had been gathering intelligence for months. She hadn't just photographed my yard. She'd studied my daily routine, documented my work schedule, noted when Sophia left for her mysterious job and when she returned. She had surveillance files on my family that would make private investigators jealous. When I found out she knew I jogged the same route every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 a.m., I realized this wasn't random harassment. It was targeted psychological warfare. Megan's visible deterioration should have been another warning. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks, jumping at shadows, constantly checking her phone. She'd sit in her car outside Olivia's apartment for hours, afraid to go inside. I later learned Olivia had been forcing Megan to file ridiculous complaints, noise violations because my air conditioner ran during legal hours, pet problems because Max barked at squirrels, zoning issues because my host violated some obscure ordinance. Olivia was building an official record. Meanwhile, Sophia's concern deepened. My wife is usually the calmest person I know. Nothing rattles her. When she started talking with genuine worry, I knew something serious was happening. The surveillance pattern is concerning, she told me. In crisis management, we study these patterns because they indicate someone preparing for major escalation events. When I asked what kind of events, she got that look like she knew exactly what was coming, but hoped she was wrong. The breaking point came when I confided how scared I was of losing everything over her psychological warfare. She's destroying my career, my reputation, I told Sophia. How do you fight someone willing to lie about anything? Sophia looked at me with absolute confidence. Trust me, she said. Let her make that call. I know exactly how to handle what's coming. I didn't fully understand, but I trusted her. The surveillance footage from that week showed Olivia's behavior becoming ritualistic and obsessive. She'd arrive at the same time every morning, park in the exact same spot, photograph my house from identical angles with mechanical precision. Neighbors started commenting. Olivia said she was building comprehensive evidence for proper authorities who would finally take action against community violators. She made it sound like she had connections that could force me to comply. That night, my doorbell camera captured something chilling Olivia standing motionless in my driveway at 1:30 a.m. Not taking photos, not leaving notes, just standing there staring at my house for 12 solid minutes before walking away. Sophia reviewed the footage and her face went pale. Aaron, people don't do this unless they're planning something very specific. But what? Holy freaking hell. The next morning, Olivia deployed her nuclear option. She'd been waiting for Sophia to leave for work, timing it perfectly. As soon as my wife's car disappeared around the corner, Olivia appeared in my driveway. Her hair was disheveled, makeup smeared, eyes wild. This is it, Aaron, she announced like she was declaring war. Time for you to learn what real consequences look like. I'm standing there at 7 a.m. in a bathrobe holding a watering can, trying to figure out what this unhinged woman thought she was going to accomplish by having a breakdown in my driveway. Olivia, you're trespassing, I told her calmly. Please leave now or I'll have to call the police. She smiled a serial killer smile. Perfect, she said, pulling out her phone like she'd been waiting for those words. Save me the trouble of making the call myself. What happened next was like watching someone commit professional suicide in high definition. Olivia dialed 911 right in front of me, making sure I could hear every word of her performance. Please help me, she sobbed. He's attacking me with a weapon. He's threatening to kill me. I'm terrified. I was 20 feet away, holding a plastic watering wand, wearing fuzzy slippers, watching her describe a violent assault that existed only in her imagination. The irony was so thick you could serve it for dinner. Officer Morgan arrived within minutes. He followed proper protocol, separated us, interviewed Olivia first because she called, treated it like a legitimate emergency until he could prove otherwise. I had to give him credit. Olivia's performance was genuinely impressive, hyperventilating, detailed descriptions of how I'd cornered her, specific death threats. If I hadn't been living this nightmare and recording our interactions, even I might have doubted my memory. She'd clearly rehearsed this story for weeks. Then my wife came home and the universe shifted. Sophia's car pulled into our driveway. It had a decal I'd never noticed, Regional Police Training Academy instructor. Morgan looked up from his notepad. His demeanor changed instantly. Instructor Morgan, he said, like greeting a favorite professor. I had no idea you lived in my patrol area. How are things at the academy? Sophia responded with professional warmth. Officer Morgan, wonderful to see you. How's that crisis de-escalation certification going? Are you finding the hostile confrontation modules helpful? I wish I could describe the look on Olivia's face. Imagine someone discovering they accidentally declared war on their own country's military. Her confident victim performance froze mid-sob as she realized she'd called 911 to report a fake assault against someone whose wife taught police how to handle false reports. She thought she was delivering a killing blow. Instead, she'd just triggered a chain of events that would destroy her. Sophia didn't abuse her position. She provided expert analysis of textbook false reporting behavior. Behavioral pattern analysis reveals inconsistent timeline construction, absence of corroborating physical evidence, escalating fabrication tendencies, and clear premeditation markers, she explained, like she was conducting a training seminar. Officer Morgan, trained by her, could compare Olivia's dramatic call to video evidence from my camera. Olivia described me cornering her with a weapon. The video showed me calmly watering plants, maintaining distance. The contrast was devastating. Within minutes, 35 neighbors gathered, expecting another police visit. Instead, They witnessed the spectacular destruction of Olivia's credibility. Her supporters were watching their HOA president's revenge completely backfire against someone who literally wrote the manual on handling false emergency calls. This is entrapment. Olivia screamed, forgetting she was the one who called. She's abusing her government position to protect him. You two planned this. Every desperate accusation just made her look more unstable. Morgan recognized every false reporting pattern from Sophia's training. Olivia realized she used her ultimate weapon against someone who professionally disarms ultimate weapons. Weeks of planning, surveillance, false evidence gone. Morgan's body camera recorded everything. The best part? The community witnessed her lies crumbling in real time. People who defended her for weeks were watching her attack a police instructor while filing obviously false reports. You could see opinions shifting. Several neighbors recorded the confrontation. Sophia never lost her composure. She explained false reporting identification techniques. Initial verbal harassment escalating to property surveillance, followed by workplace interference, culminating in false victimization claims with premeditated evidence staging. It was like watching a surgeon perform an operation, precise, clinical, devastating. Then Morgan explained to Olivia that filing false police reports is a criminal offense. She realized her nuclear strategy imploded. She thought she was destroying me. Instead, she'd provided a police training expert with a real-world example of false reporting. The woman called the police to demonstrate her own criminal behavior to someone who teaches officers how to identify it. Morgan documented everything. And then Olivia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. All color drained from her face. "That's impossible," she whispered. "They can't be found." She looked at me and Sophia with terror. "I need to call my lawyer." What message shattered her confidence? It turned out to be from Megan. They know about the other neighborhoods. County investigators had been digging into Olivia's background. They found a pattern. This wasn't her first neighborhood war. It was her third. Detective Johnson took over. The 6-week investigation was like watching dominoes fall. Week 1, they interviewed us and about a dozen neighbors. Sophia provided expert testimony. Week 2, Jessica's audit uncovered $8,500 embezzled through fake consulting payments to Megan's Garden Advisory LLC. Week 3, Megan flipped. Facing fraud charges and possible homelessness, she gave investigators recorded conversations exposing the conspiracy. She described 18 months of coordinated harassment targeting 7 neighbors, plans for workplace sabotage, text messages showing Olivia's systematic approach. She made me file fake noise complaints, pet violations, zoning issues, Megan confessed. If I didn't help, she'd kick me out and tell my family I was a drug addict. Community support for Olivia collapsed gradually at first, then suddenly. Week 1 after the 911 incident, about 40 neighbors still defended her. They thought maybe she had a bad day. Week 3 after the embezzlement news, it dropped to 12. By week 5, when criminal charges were filed, she had 3 supporters left family. Watching someone's social network collapse was heartbreaking, even though she brought it on herself. My professional vindication came when my boss called me. "Aaron, I owe you an apology," he said. "Investigators had subpoenaed our security footage and phone records. We see exactly how she manipulated our systems. We're giving you full legal support. We're considering you for a commendation for handling this professionally." 3 clients who questioned my character sent formal apologies, even increased their orders. Getting harassed by a crazy neighbor actually improved my career. But Olivia didn't go quietly. Even under investigation, she kept committing new offenses, threatening Megan with homelessness if she testified, filing false complaints with my state licensing board claiming I'd sold defective equipment, calling my boss to demand my company take responsibility. Each new crime made her legal situation worse, but she seemed incapable of stopping. Her public defender told her she faced 6 felony charges: embezzlement, false reports, conspiracy, stalking, witness tampering, false licensing complaints. "Mrs. Bennett, you're looking at 2 to 3 years unless you accept the plea bargain," the lawyer said. The psychological evaluation revealed untreated personality disorder triggered by abandonment trauma from her divorce. The court-appointed psychologist wrote that Olivia's behavior represented pathological escalation in response to perceived rejection and targeting of authority figures as proxies for her unresolved trauma, fancy terms for. She lost her mind when her husband left. Olivia's plea bargain: 15 months probation, $8,500 restitution, $2,500 in fines, 250 hours community service, mandatory counseling, and a no-contact order banning her from coming within 500 feet of us. Total financial hit, about $21,000. Watching her sign was like watching someone agree to their own financial execution. But her problems were just beginning. Her criminal case became local news. Channel 7 ran a story, HOA President's Harassment Campaign Backfires Spectacularly, complete with her mugshot and breakdown of crimes. It was shared over 800 times. She went from respected leader to viral cautionary tale about letting personal trauma turn you into a criminal. 2 days before her restitution deadline, I found an envelope under my door. Inside was a photo of my house taken from a high angle, like a drone shot. On the back, someone wrote in red ink, "This isn't over." The handwriting wasn't Olivia's. Who was still helping her? What were they planning? Anyone else get chills? I sure did. What would you do if you found a photo like that? Tell me in the comments. The mysterious photo turned out to be Olivia's last desperate attempt. She'd asked her ex-husband to help, thinking he might care enough to get revenge. Instead, he called the police and turned over the drone footage and text messages where she begged him to help me make them pay. The first month after sentencing, Olivia's social destruction peaked. The court required her to read a public apology to 60 neighbors. Watching her break down was satisfying. "I lost my husband, my house, my self-respect," she sobbed. "I just wanted to feel important again. I'm sorry for hurting people who didn't deserve it." Even the judge seemed moved. "Miss Bennett, your response to trauma was to harm innocent families. This court hopes counseling helps you find healthier ways to rebuild dignity." But Olivia still tried to salvage control. She confronted Sophia at Target, screaming that she destroyed her life using government connections. Sophia, calm as ever, responded like conducting a seminar. "I documented criminal behavior using the same procedures I teach every day. You destroyed your own life by choosing harassment over getting help. Then came the knockout. Instead of rebuilding positively after your divorce, you tried to steal dignity by bullying others. That's not strength, it's pathology." Watching Olivia collapse in a Target aisle, sobbing, escorted out by security, recorded by shoppers, turned into social media fodder, was a final exclamation point. She went from respected leader to viral Karen meme in 6 months. All because she couldn't accept that some people won't be bullied. Financially, she was devastated. Her legal defense cost $9,500 borrowed from her elderly mother. Restitution was $8,500. Fines added $3,000. She'd already lost half her assets in the divorce. Now she faced $21,000 in debt with a criminal record, making her unemployable. I watched her sell her car, jewelry, and furniture through online estate sales, liquidating everything to pay consequences. For months later, I hosted what I called Liberation Day, a neighborhood barbecue celebrating freedom from Olivia's reign. 50 neighbors showed up, including people who'd supported her. They apologized for not seeing warning signs. "We should have realized something was wrong when she measured mailboxes at dawn," Mrs. Henderson said. "Nobody does that unless they're having a breakdown." We decorated the rose bush with tiny flags and a plaque, the $12 bush that freed Hill Rest. Never forget the power of standing up. My victory speech: sometimes bullies pick the wrong target. Combine solid documentation, community support, and a wife whose job involves training the exact people bullies try to weaponize, and justice finds a way. That got a huge laugh. "Here's to $12 flowers and wives with very specific skill sets," someone shouted. The crowd erupted. The most satisfying moment? Olivia driving slowly past in her beat-up car. She sold the nice one to pay legal bills. She pulled over, watching 50 neighbors celebrate her downfall. She finally understood what she'd lost. It wasn't just legal consequences. It was social exile from the only community she had after her divorce. Moving day was the final humiliation. I watched her load a U-Haul alone. Not a single neighbor helped. We usually help each other, but everyone ignored her. The boxes were labeled storage unit because she couldn't afford a new apartment to fit her furniture. 30 years of possessions crammed into a truck bound for a warehouse, all because she couldn't accept that people can plant flowers without submitting to her. The epilogue came 6 months later when I got the most satisfying phone call of my life. It was from the manager of Olivia's new apartment complex, Pine Valley Gardens. "Mr. Morgan, we're evicting a tenant who mentioned your name during complaints. She's filed 47 harassment complaints against neighbors in 3 months. Noise violations, pet disputes, parking issues. We found your contact info in her files. Is this normal?" I almost felt bad. "Unfortunately, completely normal," I replied. "Good luck to whatever community gets her next." But the story didn't end. 6 months later, I was grilling burgers in my backyard next to that famous rose bush when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Mr. Morgan, this is Detective Williams from Metro Police. We found something in a storage unit that belongs to you. Can you come down to the station? You might want to bring your wife." Sophia and I exchanged glances. What could Olivia have left behind requiring police involvement? But that is a story for another day. For now, I'm just a guy who learned that sometimes standing up to bullies means accepting they'll try to destroy your life. But when you have evidence, community support, and a wife whose job involves training the people bullies try to weaponize, sometimes the universe has a sense of humor about delivering justice. Sometimes $12 flowers really can change everything. Thanks for sticking with this wild ride on HOA Unfiltered. If this story had you hooked, share it with a friend. I'll see you in the next one, where we'll dive into even crazier neighborhood drama. Until then, keep standing up to the bullies in your own backyard.